Burgess and Bolton's weekly wrap-up.
Hello, Ben.
Hello, Jeremy. Happy Friday.
Yes, happy Friday indeed. And
bit of a rush, wasn't it, getting to this?
It was,
after
wasn't
the week we've had.
Yeah, it's been a busy week on the international stage, on the M&A stage, on
my home stage. I've had a leak.
Have you?
Yeah, I've had a leak, an unseen leak. It's what you get when you get to my age. No, it's an unseen water leak in my house, and there was some claims action.
Ooh. Well, let's get on to that later.
You can do a bit on that later, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of Burgess and Bolton's weekly wrap-up, where we look at everything to do with technology change, innovation, London market issues, etc., etc. This week, as I say, it has been a big week. Mergers, acquisitions, technology change. And in the news, Beazley rejects Zurich's £10 billion takeover bid. So I've just done a kind of reminiscence package of the last 4 days of what's been happening. So on Monday, Zurich CEO Mario Greco went on the record outlining why Zurich wants Beazley and how it believes a deal could work. So they roughly made a £10 billion cash offer for Beazley, and they want to use it as a platform, use Beazley as a platform. So to integrate sort of Zurich's £9 billion specialty business into Beazley. So that way it kind of preserves the Beazley brand, management culture, underwriting autonomy, all those kind of things. It was an interesting statement from there. And then a couple of days later, so by Thursday, the board had firmly rejected the offer. That's the Beazley board, and said that Zurich had submitted an offer of over the amount of 1,230 pence of 1,315 pence of June last year. So it'd come in with a lower offer publicly. And that would have valued the company at about 8.4 billion. So I think the board's stance is that it undervalues Beazley currently, and they are holding the line that they can deliver shareholder value as a standalone entity, and they don't need to sell. So it's quite interesting, kind of strategically, the two positions where Zurich sees Beazley as the as a platform, as I was saying, and whereas Beazley are kind of valuing their or defending rather their valuation and independence and culture and that type of thing. So it's a bit of an open question about whether this will go through, whether what are your thoughts on it?
Well, they're not necessarily, some of them are my thoughts, but some of them reading through some of the other articles, and obviously this stuff, once it gets to this stage and it goes public, which Zurich obviously forced the hand of Beazley and the investors on it, it then becomes a bit of a, read the coded language game. And the coded language, I think, is that, Adrian Cox, the chairman of Beazley, are saying it obviously there was a higher bid. Zurich's point is, higher bid before, but you've pulled back from cyber a bit, market softening, so the value's lower. Beazley obviously say no to that. So Zurich's had a go at getting a slightly lower bid, or a billion lower, but slightly in this context, and are saying, well, we're not going to accept that. But Adrian Cox says it's materially, below what we'd expect. And I think that word materially, it means it's not substantially or hugely or massively below or completely undervaluing us. So it's material. It means it's not much under. And I think it's coded language to say, if you want to have another offer, then we're not close to that. And I think the other words that are around the coded phrases of, this is we get what Zurich is saying about this. We don't think this is an insulting deal. We think that it's a thought through. So there's a kind of little dance going on between them. And I think for the moment, the shareholders, the investors have said that they've agreed are on the Beazley board side, which is unsurprising because they will get more money if it's the thing. But I think this is the end game for Beazley. This is it. It's either, okay, even if Zurich goes away now, then, we know, our data at Gracechurch shows consolidation is happening, not just as an M&A activity, but businesses flowing more and more to the largest players in the market. It's a scale battle going on. And so, you can't stand on your own. And there's a race, really, because there's only 3 quoted players in the London market: Hiscox, Lancashire, and Beazley, and you've got to get in quick, And I think, therefore, don't know. I think this will probably go through. There's a 28-day period, which I think is now 24 days, but that's quite a bit of time, isn't it, to play around. The only other thing is whether someone else comes in. And has a go too.
Yeah, it wouldn't be called coming. They would swoop in, wouldn't they? A newspaper headline would be they would swoop in.
Swoop in, yeah. XXX swoops in.
Yeah,
the last minute deal signed off by the board. Who knows? I mean, there are lots of players out there with this sort of money. And I just, this is a slight aside, but I always think, crikey, $1 billion. When you write $1 billion on a piece of paper, you have to fairly carefully check the noughts, don't you?
Yeah. Oh, I've never written it.
No, I haven't very often. When you do, you have to write the noughts. You think, what if you got it slightly wrong?
Yeah.
It's a lot of noughts. Of noughts. No, I think it's momentous, isn't it, for the market, really, because Beazley is such a top brand in Insurindex. It's a hugely successful business.
I was going to talk to you a little bit more about the kind of the brand and what it means to the market in a second, Ben, but I thought I would just play you a clip of when we were young. Not the music video, but have a look at this.
We were young.
Yeah.
Hang on, I guess.
So this is quite interesting because you started off by saying that the reason for the kind of rumor is kind of the low valuations for these companies. And can we just explore that a bit more? Because it's, I don't know, what is the reason for that? Why do people feel they're kind of undervalued currently?
Well, they've been low. I mean, one of the reasons is the profit history of the businesses. I mean, they have been somewhat up and down. They're quite exposed to, obviously, volatile risk. And so that's one of the reasons. I think the other is I think just the very fact they're quoted as, UK players on the UK stock exchange, on the London Stock Exchange, they're not seen as these kind of big international players that you would get if they were, just bigger players, like even, I guess, I was going to say a Chubb, but they're huge. But I mean, the sort of players that would be kind of mid-large players, but were kind of much more international. Yeah. They're more complex to purchase. They have more potentially more opportunity, I guess, in M&A terms than what would be seen as a London-based operation. But of course, if you look at Beazley, Beazley has a substantial US operation. Lancashire less, so it has a Bermuda operation, it has a London syndicate, and things. So they are they're seen as good businesses, but a little undervalued. So they'd be like an additional acquisition to a business. They would not be seen as not really a true merger, I guess, in a way. If say, let's say Sompo, which is the one that's supposedly looking at this. I mean, Sompo is a massive Japanese business, international, big even in London. So it would be bolstering up, from a Beazley purchase and even a Hiscox and a Lancs, a very much a London, market type of purchase, which obviously is, an international US type P&C business. And they'd be buying into some of the US, but they might equally argue, Sompo, I don't actually know offhand how big Sompo is in the US, but that could be of interest to them. But they're not buying it for an international acquisition, if you see what I mean. So,
yeah.
So they're just, Lancashire has had, very good times, as has Hiscox. Beazley has a much more consistent profit record, but equally they're all seen as kind of quite exposed to the volatility of cats, cyber, as et cetera, et cetera. So they're somewhat undervalued, and the returns. I mean, if you want to take it very simply, the returns have not been as big as some other players in other bigger businesses.
Yeah. Of course, I could have predicted that there would have been a move for Hiscox because I sold the Hiscox shares 2 years ago. So, as with all my forecasts,
I didn't like to say that, Jeremy. That was the other reason I was thinking that it was mentioned in one of the analyst articles. Yeah, that a major,
the major move
shareholder, but probably one of the more. Well, I think they called it an unintelligent shareholder had dumped the shares at the wrong time. And,
yeah.
That had left them very much open to this acquisition move.
Yeah. So, as you know, never follow any advice on this show.
Yeah. Well, yes, because shares can go up or down, particularly down if they're in your control. Hey.
So there we are.
That was that bloke blathering on about whatever.
Yeah, but quite accurately, that was June 2024.
Yeah, God, this is the channel the investors should follow, isn't it?
Yeah, this is it.
They should. It's crazy.
No, that's not our Southwark office, Phil. That's the office here. It's just another little cubby hole that we had before the studio proper got set up.
Yeah. Trust Phil to take it to the parochial. We're talking about $10 billion deals, and he's checking on which office it is.
There we are. But let's pick that up because it is quite interesting what you were saying just before we played that clip of us being psychics around what it means for the market. Because I was going to pick up on this idea around the brand, and I've been at your marketing events, and Beazley is always put up there as being quite innovative and pushing the boundaries when it comes to branding within the London market and kind of creating that distinct identity. What do you think that's part of it? Is that what's attracted it to it, or is it just literally the numbers?
That's not something we can necessarily straight away answer because it's what you'd call goodwill. So it does sort of exist in the balance sheet, but often it's a discussion, between, it's the premium you'd pay over in the absolute book value. Now, in every deal, there is a multiplier effect of the future, what you could call the future cash flows of the business. So that's really how, acquisitions, fundamentally work. So, the question always is, and it's a tricky one, is does the brand itself create future cash flows? And that is a, somewhat subjective argument. I think, though, it's fairly clear that the Beazley brand is selling at a multiple that is pretty decent, even if even on the deal that was offered by Zurich. So it's a pretty good price. And I think some of the commentators have said, there was someone on LinkedIn saying it was a pretty strong, pretty, if not the highest multiple that had been offered, one of the highest multiples that have been offered. So I think it's fair to say that, in fact, this is reflecting of the investment they've made in the brand over the years. I think it's a profitable business, and I think a lot of that is driven by its brand. I mean, other things too, but I think that's self-evident that the brand is very valuable to Zurich, and in so much so that they've said they will keep the brand going, which is quite often unusual. I mean, it's whether that will go on forever is another matter, but because ultimately brands do run out of steam. If you're part of a Zurich, which is also a big name, you can do a sort of transition, which is Zurich, Beazley, Zurich, whatever. The slight problem with this one is there's not much alliteration in the name and the identity. The Beazley, Zurich. There's two Z's, which is in Scrabble. They're 1 point letters, so they're not very, they're not very used in the English language. Z's, and they're a bit difficult. So I'm comparing it, say, with an AXA XL. So that XL is actually an old name, really, now. Doesn't exist. So they've kept it, but there's a kind of alliteration. AXA XL, it kind of uses those X's quite well. Anyway, wittering on about it, but it does kind of matter ultimately, because brand works, as you know, Jeremy, and been to our sessions, it works strongly on memory availability. So when there's a lot of choice, you choose the ones you remember. And Beazley's one of the most memorable brands now in London. Less so, I suppose, when you get to the US, where there are big household names.
Yeah.
I'm not sure Beazley's a household name either. I mean, Hiscox would be, for example, in the UK, for sure, because it's worked in the retail end of things, and that often helps businesses. Beazley hasn't been that, and that's it's very much in the B2B space, not the B2C space.
Yeah. Good.
So some of which matters, just to say, some of which matters, by the way, in boardrooms where people don't know the insurers very well. So when you come in, it's not necessarily the case that even the finance director would know all these specialty players.
Good. Right. Definitely one to watch. Interesting. See what happens with the share price over the next few days. Right. I wanted to 12. Look at that. Not rendered correctly. 12 left. 12 what?
That is amateur, isn't it?
This is why we shouldn't log on to this system with 30 seconds to go until we hit the.
I know. That's just 12 what? 12
what? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
12 sandwiches left.
Who knows? You'll have to turn up anyway. That's not why I put it up. The reason I put it up is because hot off the press, and I think I sent you this bit of research that we've done ahead of the TINtech London Market event, where we ask all the attendees what is kind of top of their agendas at the moment, what they would like to get out of the event. For those that know, TINtech London Market is a technology event, but it's not a techie event, very much looking at technology strategy and how it's driving change in the industry and how individual firms are leveraging tech and digital and data to enable their operating models, both now and in the future. But the survey is interesting because it kind of gives us a year-on-year kind of perspective on how people's I guess sentiment towards technology and change and innovation is changing, and it's interesting this year that kind of one of the best quotes that came out of the survey is AI is just another tool, just a game-changing tool. Yeah,
And I thought that was great. So that I've put that at the top of the report, and we'll be putting this out on LinkedIn. So I'll put a link in the description straight after this. But I thought I'd just pull out kind of 3 kind of areas that are kind of changed over the last sort of 18 months or so. So the first being kind of this kind of hype versus reality versus kind of actual what's happening on the ground. And we've been pretty critical of some of the initiatives. Blueprint 2 springs to mind that actually there's an awful lot of talk and not a lot of action going on. And I think that when I've been speaking to people, and especially the presenters at TINtech, they are willing and open to share both their successes and things that haven't worked as well when they've been trying to implement some of these technologies. And there's an awful lot of talk about how you move from the proof of concept stage into kind of a production environment where you're able to roll it across the organization. And that really starts to touch on the stuff that we like to talk about, is, what's the implications for the operating model? What does it mean for the culture and the way people are working? What are the unintended consequences and those types of things? So I think it's going to be interesting to sit in on those conversations and hear the discussion that's triggered from it. Firstly, to get a view on how far people are along their journey to a more kind of hybrid approach where AI is sitting next to people within their working environments, but also where the kind of the blockers are and things like that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think it's do you think there's a kind of an element of frustration, a bit of frustration in some of this feedback as to
I think
the direction of travel of AI, perhaps, or what's the hype and stuff?
I think it's not frustration, it's almost like reality.
Yeah.
So people, and that brings me on to that kind of second point there, the kind of legacy and data foundations. I think what this is really exposing are the weaknesses within their operating model at the moment, and the rigidness.
Yeah, rigidity. Yeah.
Yeah, that one of them currently. And I think that we've talked over, I don't know, past 10, 15 years about the need for people to get a real grip on a data strategy, understand how data flows through the organization, what it means, that type of thing. But what AI and automation is doing is going, oh crikey, we don't have the data in a standardized format. We don't have it in a flow. And it's just kind of focusing minds on kind of as it says there, kind of that foundational level that needs to be put in place. So I don't think it's frustration. I think it's actually giving people ammunition to go back to boards and go, look, we need some resources in order to sort out the fundamental, and then we can start to reap the benefits in the future. I think there's one final thing just to add to that, and that's that final point there, which is kind of the soft market or the softening market that we've been talking about for the last however many months. This is now focusing operations directors and those that have to worry about these things on kind of the bottom line and making money. So an interesting conversation I had was, that the pendulum swings. So when hard markets and loads of money has been making, people are going, oh no, we can't change anything. We can't invest in digital or new ways of working because we're focusing on underwriting and making hay. As the pendulum swings back towards a more soft market, the argument goes, oh, we can't do anything now because, we're not sure how much money we're going to make and this type of thing. Now, I don't think that traditional swing can happen anymore because the world around us is changing. And I think there's a realization that if you're going to be able to compete effectively, and that's an important word, in the future, then you need to make some decisions and some investments.
And
I think that's where we are.
And I can see that. I think it's the less frustration. It's more the push to push this forward into something that's actually going to work, which is not really something we've seen before, is it? Really, I think we've always had a kind of debate about things and what should we do, and we've got to do this or that. But now it does feel like there's a drive to get this stuff to actually land.
And also, I would also add to that it isn't kind of tinkering around the edges. So a lot of the innovation, in inverted commas, that we've seen before has kind of been like taking, I don't know, a small slither of the, a process, being able to automate it or doing something. And it hasn't really moved the dial in terms of increasing capability or cutting costs. It's just almost been a proof of concept. Can this work? And it's interesting. It's an interesting exercise, and it allows you to not outlay a lot of costs in order to build the knowledge base in order to perhaps do something different. But I think that has moved on. People realize that the world in 5 years' time is going to be fundamentally different to the one that we're in now. And if you look 5 years ago, you can see that trajectory. So, I think it's pretty exciting. I mean, everybody I talk about is pretty excited by this stuff.
Yeah. I think it is. And we've, certainly you and I have been talking to people who are doing stuff in the market, and it does seem like not only is the technology working, but there is a commitment to working to how people work, not just what the technology is doing. So you do feel there's a coming together of the technology and the people here, and the strong drive around, particularly around data and initially, I think the whole trading system, isn't it? The trading process, really.
Yeah, I think so. And getting that, quite often people talk to me about kind of having that there needs to be a piece of educational work done within organizations to firstly understand what they are currently doing and how it impacts other areas of their business, and then the opportunity, the art of the possible. And I think that piece of work is still ongoing.
Yes.
I think what's interesting is, if you look back maybe 5 years ago, you had quite a lot of resistance to change. Now you have a few pockets of resistance to change, but they are quickly evaporating. And you went to see, and I've seen Simon Squire's AXA XL and a live working demo of the way that they are trading properly electronically, and that is, that's amazing, really, when you see it in action, going, okay, crikey, this is really working. And I think it's those types of initiatives where you have people coming together, communicating properly, going, look, this is a big problem. If you fix it, you win, we win. And then away we go. So
I agree. I think the thing we haven't really seen before is, which we've talked about, and we will talk about, I think, next week on Tuesday a lot, I think, is really what are people doing now with the technology. And it feels like there's a real kind of head of steam, and people have made progress, haven't they, really, on this. And that sometimes, in fact, probably always, has been in doubt whether this is real progress or not, but it feels like it is now. And it also feels like, I think, with all this consolidation stuff we're talking about, that is one of the big drivers, because the prize is to increase efficiency and margins, and free up time to go and do some innovation.
I agree. Yes. So it will be interesting to see, over the next few years, those that make the investments now, how much that the opportunity that's quite often touted around becomes a reality. So it's going to be interesting discussions. So very good.
Yeah, it is. I think it's very interesting. Yeah, and it's coming together, definitely coming together, I think, in our when we look at the overview, everything that we're talking about now, even if I talk to claims teams, we're talking about, the algorithmic trading, what's going to happen, how much is going to automate. So everywhere we're talking about this.
Yeah. Talking of claims, Ben, you've had a leak. Well, I'm not surprised. I mean, it hasn't stopped for international listeners. It has not stopped raining here for it feels like weeks.
Yeah, it isn't a rain leak, but it's a leak. It's probably one of the most. It's a kind of worrying thing if someone's, because we got a letter from Southeastern Water, who are not the best company. Southeast Water, not the best company in the world at the moment.
Joking.
But they wrote to me saying, "Oh, you've used your water bill is £1,000 higher than it was last year. So we think you got a leak." And I think they might be right. And so anyway, I checked the meter reading, and there was 24 cubic meters of water being used. Now, do you know? I know you don't. I'll just ask you the question anyway. It's rhetorical, really. Do you know how much 24 cubic meters of water is in terms of showers?
24 cubic meters. So is that a swimming pool full of a 25-meter pool?
More than a swimming pool. It's more than a swimming pool. It's 288 showers. So that's 24,000 liters of water in a month we've used at my house.
Wow.
Yeah. How about that?
Very clean.
So it's not a small leak, but it's not visible anywhere. So it's an unseen leak, as I said earlier on, and that was the thing. So you've got to get someone in to find it. So anyway, it's kind of the thing that happened with the company claim, because the water company said you can claim for the finding of the leak, because that's often the most expensive thing, because it's under floorboards and all that sort of thing. You've got to rip them up and all that. So they'd say they'll cover for that. But on LinkedIn, I put it out there, and some of the people there, some of the loss adjusters and people and others who are in the game, obviously said, don't know why the insurer wouldn't tell you or give you advice, because I got 3 plumbers in the end, and had to get they do this thing where they put gas into the pipes so they can tell whether there's a leak and where it roughly is. Anyway, all that's happened, and we've found that it was a fault. I think it's a faulty tank that's sealed and needs to be replaced. But anyway, it's turned off now, so that's right. But one of the questions that arose, which I think is very, very relevant to claims, is why wouldn't the insurer just tell you? Because actually, I didn't know anything about tracing a leak, before this week. I mean, I wouldn't know, because it's not like my job, obviously, and I don't do it. But there's a whole world. I mean, I could do it now, obviously, because I learned about it, and I just need the kit, basically, and I can do it. So so I learned a lot very quickly, but I don't see why, as per the LinkedIn comment, all insurers wouldn't say, right, okay, these are the sort of companies we rate, and they do this, kind of trace of the leak, and they have this sort of kit, and these are the costs. So, but they don't do that. They just go, oh, we'll just get yourself a plumber, come and have a look and see if they can sort the leak, which I think is leaving you, I was going to say high and dry, but maybe soggy and wet, low and wet.
Yeah. So that's funny, because I had a similar letter arrive when we'd been on holiday, and we also had a leak. And it was the downstairs toilet. It wasn't like shutting off, so there was a tiny trickle going into
toilet trickle. Yeah. Unseen leaks and toilet trickles are the problem.
That's the first thing. Yeah. So I was able to stop it by putting a peg in the the cistern.
Yeah.
You turn it off, so it stops leaking.
Yeah. That's the most common cause, actually, of leaks. Is toilet just goes on all the time. So it's 24 hours running.
Yeah. just tight. You can't even notice it. Yeah, so they were doing this, and that's what they said. They said you need to contact your insurance company. I was like,
Yeah.
My first question was why? I mean, what are they going to do? But you're right. Yeah, a bit of advice.
It's covered, but it's it's covered. But I think there wasn't any other advice, given this must be a very, very common thing. There wasn't any sort of general advice. There was a sort of, in fact, I mean, the water company was quite good. They asked me a few questions and checked out a few things, and that was good. I just felt that on the insurance side, it was really just very closely sticking to the policy terms. They told me what my excess was, that I can't claim for this, I can't claim for that, which is fine. I do get that, but there was so sort of little help to say, why don't you do this and do that? And here's our advice sheet or something like that, would have been quite useful. And they could easily say, they knew where I lived, so they could say there are 4 companies that do this in the area and we've approved them.
Yeah.
And these are the rates, whatever. I don't know. It just feels like it's such an easy thing to do. And the plumbers who came round, I've said this on LinkedIn, we're all very disparaging of insurers, saying they'll cheat you out, that they won't agree to pay. And they kind of told me all these things they'd experienced. So I said, well, the trouble is we've got all these tradesmen who are like terrorists, telling everybody how bad the insurance industry is. And then by the same token, the companies are saying, go to your insurer. So it's a pretty poor situation before you've even got started on any claim or anything else. I mean, in this instance, I don't think I can even claim because, the amount of excess is too high for it to be bothered to be a claim for what they've done so far. And then I don't think they'll cover me for the tank. So there we are. It's just what it is. But I feel that the insurance was the weakest bit of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Plumbers were great. The plumbers were really good. They were all like really kind of these plumbers who were obsessed about finding leaks. They were like calling me afterwards saying, did you find it? Where was it? I couldn't find it. Which is great. That's what you want.
Yeah.
But there we are.
Excellent. One of the bit of news for people who are in the know about Southeastern Water, because they are a company with a checkered history. Let's just put it that way. I mean, currently there are a bunch of houses in Tunbridge Wells that don't have any water. Whilst it's been raining constantly since I can't remember when, December.
Yeah.
And we're currently under a hosepipe ban. I don't know.
So
yeah.
Yeah, still.
It's beyond. I mean, you couldn't write it. It's
no. We've still got a hosepipe ban, despite all the rain. Yeah,
that's funny. Mind you, you've been leaking so much water. Maybe it's time
well, yeah. I mean, 288. Unless someone in my house said 288 showers.
Yeah. You never know.
Which is it's quite a lot.
Yeah.
Quite a lot.
Good. Right. What are you doing this weekend, Ben? Anything good?
Yes, I'm going away. It's my sister's. I've got twin sisters for their birthday, so we're staying in a big house somewhere in the countryside and celebrating it. So yeah, it's quite exciting.
Sounds
quite exciting.
Sounds lovely. I am gonna play. When I say play, lose at tennis tomorrow.
Oh yeah.
And then I've got to organise a village fete. So just a normal stuff.
What, you're a village fete in this time of year?
No, June.
Oh, okay. You're organising it. Right, okay, I was going to say.
Set the wheels in motion.
It'd be a bit miserable having one at this time of year in this weather, wouldn't it?
It would. Yeah.
Instead of having it in the summer in this type of weather.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Good. Right. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We will see you next week. And have a good weekend.
Bye.